And how we doing, Red Sox fans? Hello, hello, good evening. Hope everyone's having a great week so far. It's almost the weekend, almost there. Ellis, how you doing, my friend? How you doing?
What's going on, Robbie? I'm good, man.
Man, not gonna lie. We've talked about the Red Sox where, disappointing season. And every time the postseason comes on and the Red Sox aren't in it, it's pretty deflating. I'm not gonna lie. It's fun to maybe not go through so much anxiety and, near panic attacks, every single
Yeah.
postseason. But, we live for that. That's the fun of it. And,
Well,
seeing all these other teams have all the fun, it's kind of just a lame feeling. I don't know. What do you think?
well, it seems like they should be there. I mean, it's like a void. You're missing out on something. But they had a tough year. Gonna have to bounce back next year because there's some great competition in the playoffs right now. But
Yeah. What are you seeing so far in the postseason? What teams are you liking? I bombed on my picks. I went for a chaos playoffs. I went Cardinals, Blue Jays in the World Series. Nah, that
oh
didn't work out
dang,
at all, man. So, oh
yeah,
well.
yeah, you're out right now. But you know what? I'm liking those Stros, man. They're looking good. The Guardians, they lost the first game in New York, but they're gonna bounce back because
Yeah.
let me just say something about that series. I just feel like the way they play the game, they're bunt guys over, they're hit and run, they're steal bags, they're aggressive on the bases. They're just a young team that really don't know any better. And Tito Francona's got those guys believing in themselves. So, my pick in that series are the Guardians.
Yeah,
As
me
far as
too.
the Astros are concerned, they're playing great ball and getting some timely hitting from, who? Mr. Alvarez.
Yeah.
Whew,
Man.
that guy's nasty.
Guy's a machine. We were just
Yeah.
talking here before we went live saying he reminds us of David Ortiz. We're
Yeah.
trying not to be so biased here, but he just brings that. Why does he remind you of David Ortiz just besides the home runs? Is there anything about him that kind of just
Well,
sticks out to you?
the way the presence in the batter's box, they just look like, they're going to do something special at any given time. And, each night he's done that. He's been a clutch player over the last couple of years. I mean, he's had some big hits, very similar to David Ortiz. I'm not comparing him to David right now, but there's a lot of similarities. Let me just put it like that.
Absolutely. And what do you think of the move the other game where they brought in Robbie Ray, lefty at the end? That was just such a weird move to me. I don't
Yeah.
know. Is what did you think about that?
Well, I don't know what the numbers say during the course of the season, how Robbie Ray pitched to Alvarez throughout the season. Only Scott Service knows that.
Yeah.
He obviously felt something or he knew something analytical wise that, gave him the edge. So he went
Yeah.
straight to the bullpen and just say, hey, Robbie Ray, all we need is one out right here. And hey,
Yeah.
let's see what happens. And obviously
Yeah.
he didn't get it.
Yeah, my thought process was it was probably a bullpen day for him anyway. So,
Mm-hmm.
just come in, it's a lefty on lefty. The thing is, Alvarez actually hits lefties better than righties this year. He's hitting,
I
I
saw
think
that.
hitting like 320 against lefties this year. And righties, he's good against righties too, hitting like 290 against righties. But, do you have I mean, I know we've seen, we just saw Chris Sale back in 2018 close out the World Series, but
Yeah.
I guess for you, do you feel like, I don't know, bringing a starter in, on a couple of days rest, like, did you like that move or I don't know, or did you just think it just didn't work out?
In the playoffs, you got to say all hands on deck, man. That's
Yeah.
one of those situations you just got to put your best guy out there that you think's going to be successful. And I think that's what Service did. It didn't work out, but
Yeah.
you'll see it a lot more, I believe, just like Chris Sale against the Dodgers.
Yeah, and absolutely. And even going over to the National League too, the Braves and the Phillies, Phillies stealing game one there. I thought that was a
Yeah.
huge win for them. I think that's going to be a really fun series. The Dodgers Padres. I think Dodgers Padres, even though the Dodgers have just completely owned the Padres this year,
Yeah.
I said, yeah, that's going to be a 5-game series, at least in my opinion. I feel like, what for you, when, obviously we know Red Sox Yankees very much, but when it comes to the postseason, even if one team has just completely dominated another team,
Yeah.
In your opinion, does that just completely change once it hits the postseason?
Well, theoretically it does, and mentally it does, because what happens is, no matter what, if that team owned us during the regular season, postseason, that's something totally different. Everyone, it's just a clean slate. Everyone has that, that effect on each other. They just say, hey, let's go. Let's turn it up now. And I think that's exactly what the Padres are trying to put themselves in that mindset against the Dodgers.
Yeah, because, when you're looking at regular season too, it's a grind. You're just trying to make it through. You're not going to have your best guys every single game out there, pitching wise, offense. To me, postseason, you bring your best guys to the table. And that's where, the regular season can defer. Sure, it was pretty lopsided, a 14-5 record against the Padres. But you look at that Padres team, that's a really good team.
They got a good squad.
It's they're pretty well built all the way around, and then you just happen to get Juan Soto at the deadline too. I mean, that's not too bad if you ask me. But it's a fun postseason so far. What did you think of the wild card round? Considering back in 2004, the Red Sox were the lone wild card team. You didn't have the one-game playoff. What do you think of all the additions of, we had the one-game playoff of the wild card, and now we have a whole round with all these teams. What are your thoughts on the wild card round being added to the postseason this year?
I think it's very interesting. I think it gives a lot of clubs a chance. Toward the end of the season, you guys, instead of one or two teams, that they're going to be in there, and everyone else is just kind of like trying to knock off the top guy. But everyone in this last month of the season were fighting for a position, like the American League East. I mean, the Orioles were still in it. There was a lot of teams that were in it until the last week or the last few days. So, I think it gives a lot of teams an opportunity to go out there and play. And I tell you what, the first round, it was exciting as heck. I mean, I love that series in Toronto with Seattle.
Oh, man.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I still, wow. Like the way the Mariners came back there. Yeah. And then, and then they just suffered the same fate against the Astros. The postseason, we're talking about how you also bring your best players to the table. It's just a different atmosphere. With you playing all those years, did you feel like the stadium was just had a completely different vibe in the postseason, compared to just like a regular season game?
Well, as a player, everything is riding on each at bat. Each ball you catch in the field. I mean, everything you do not want to be that guy that has all this stuff in your mind, because the ball is going to be hit to you. You have to want that ball to be hit to you, ready for, any given play at any given time. And the excitement of the playoffs, the fans are all into it. Everyone's geeked up. It's just a fun environment. I love it.
Yeah. And it's so noticeable too, just among the fans. Like it's like in Toronto, like they were going, well, except for when the Mariners came back, but they were going crazy in that second game. And it's been a lot of fun, but it's really, you can't help but not think of some of the best moments in Red Sox postseason history. There's been so many. I think we have to start, in 2004. I mean, that's just the, by default.
I agree.
That it's, for me as a fan, 2004, I was in 9th grade. I was 14 years old. I had really turned into a mega fan at this point. I was late 2002, 2003 was when I really dove in. And 2004, it was just a wild ride for me as a fan. Sure. And that postseason, I had to, you as well, obviously, being there, just staying up late for all those extra inning games.
Well, you had bragging rights in high school, didn't you? Didn't you have bragging rights? Didn't you have bragging rights in high school?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was going to high school in Florida, so it was, baseball, unless you're like a Braves fan down here, Marlins, it's kind of whatever. Well, the Marlins just had won the World Series that year in 2003, but, baseball, at least where I wasn't like huge. If you played baseball, yeah, definitely. But, there weren't really a lot of Red Sox fans where I went, So, but when the Red Sox won the whole thing, everyone knew about it because it was just the story of the year. It was the sports story of the year. It was storybook. It was just it was such an exciting postseason.
It was.
And for you personally, just that entire, you played a lot of baseball in your life. Does anything compare to what you saw unfold right in front of your eyes?
No, because, it's simple because you're down 3-0. Okay. Everyone is like, okay, we're not going to get swept by these guys. We're going to come out here fighting. All right. And that's exactly the attitude we took. And, before the games, we had the little pep talks. We were talking and having fun. We never pressed. And that was the whole thing. Then to come out and win game 4, game 5, game 6. Oh my God, it was unbelievable. I was so pumped. It was just one of those atmospheres in Fenway Park. Don't let us win game 1, the first one.
Right.
That's Kevin Millar's quote. And I tell you what, we just rolled from there.
So when you guys left game 3, what was the mood in the locker room after that? Like, was it, maybe coming to work the next day, you're like, okay, let's go. When you left game 3, what was the mood then?
Well, everyone was pumped up, man. The excitement, you just stole a base, got a big knock up the middle, Billy Mueller, and all of a sudden, hey, we had a chance. And that's exactly what it is. It's all about an opportunity or a chance when you get in the playoffs. Anything can happen at any given time. And, just that one big hit, that's all it takes for that whole team to get rolling. And that's exactly what happened then.
Right. I remember after game 3, it was a blowout loss, just the Yankees hitting home runs all over the place. A-Rod chirping around the bases, Gary Sheffield hitting lasers all over the place. I actually said, this could end up being the worst thing that they do, is piling on all these runs at Fenway. At that point to everyone, okay, this series looks over now. They just scored 19 runs. To me, I said I don't know. This might actually get a team the team that just went through that might get them a little more locked in the next day. Did you feel like that mentality was kind of floating around?
Well, you know what? How many times have you seen it where a team scores 10, 12 runs in a game and all of a sudden you say, okay, that's enough. It's 10-2 or whatever. Yeah. Let's just, leave it there, score some runs tomorrow. But no, they aired it out. They just piled it on. Insult to injury, basically. And I tell you what, we as a team, we got together. I'm telling you, it was one of those magical moments. Something just clicked. Yeah. And it just worked out, and it just was amazing. Those 4 games remaining was like a dream. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, and I actually, what I really enjoyed about 2004 was just the process getting there. You got off to a really hot start in 2004. I believe 15-6 was the record. Yep. And then it was a little slow over May and June. I believe you were under 500 for those next 2 months. And then it seemed like the turning point of that season was the brawl against the Yankees. Going back to that, I don't know, what was just going through your head during that whole thing? Was that just was it a blur when everything was going on, or what was going on there?
During the course of a season, you're going to have your ups and downs. You're going to have winning streaks. You're going to have losing streaks. I say that every year about every team. Yeah. I'm going to give you an example. Like the Yankees this year, they just got off to that unbelievable start. Yeah. And I had told Tom Caron and Jim Rice in studio one night, I said, hey, the Yankees are going to lose some games. They may lose 10 in a row. After they got no hit is when I said it was going to start. But obviously that wasn't the case. It came a little later, but it's going to happen. Yeah. During the course of the season, you're going to go through a winning streak, 2 or 3 long streaks. You're going to go through a losing streak. So the Red Sox did that in 2004. They got off to that great start. They had a losing streak here and there, played subpar 500 baseball for a minute. But then at the right time, that's when they got hot. And I'm not going to say it was because of the brawl, but it just happened, Things happen that way, and you get going, and that's exactly what happened.
What I think is such a shame is the Bill Miller walk-off home run. Like, that to me was just the best. Like, it was off Mariano Rivera. It was almost like foreshadowing in a way. It was just so weird how everything kind of just happened that year.
Well, there was a lot of positives, and I tell you what, even last year, when they were in the playoffs, I mean, it seemed like another one of those magical years. You know, you had Kike just hot as a firecracker. He was just hitting everything, and things are just falling into place, but it didn't end up the way we thought it would.
Right. You know, funny story about that brawl. One guy that was in the middle of it was Tanyan Sturtz. I don't know if you remember. He was a reliever for the Yankees.
I remember him. Yeah.
I mean, you've been to Florida multiple times. The grocery store Publix. I actually used to work there. I was just a bag boy at the time. I was a cashier too, but still in high school. And he actually came because it was 2005. I believe he signed with the LA Dodgers. So the spring training complex was right near me. So he actually came through my line, and I'm kid in high school.
You recognized him, obviously.
Yeah, and I saw him. I'm like, oh, that's Tanyan Sturtz. I'm like, no one in this store probably knows who this guy is. And to me, I'm like, this is the guy with a bloody ear in that brawl with, Ortiz and Nixon. You got into it with him. I could not get it in me to just say anything to him. It was such a weird, like, starstruck kind of a feeling. He's like,
you froze up.
Yeah, it was like, I wanted to just say, like, man, what happened in that brawl? I just couldn't do it. I don't know why. Yeah, I always remember that. But
you were a freshman in high school. You could have easily gotten away with saying something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know why I didn't say anything. I don't know why, because I was the only one in that store that recognized him. At least I think I was. But but that season, right after that, the first big trade that I experienced was the Nomar trade. From your point of view, you obviously started your career with the Red Sox. High draft pick Nomar as well. Just seeing him get traded, like, I know there was a lot of stuff going on with the contract and everything. There was some bad blood there. They weren't seeing eye to eye. You seeing Nomar get traded, what's going through your head during that time?
Well, Nomar at that time, he was coming off an injury.
Yeah.
And he wasn't traveling with the team, and he sort of sensed something was going to happen, and a lot of us did as well. And we didn't know for sure, but there was a little bad blood brewing, in the organization and everything else. But for him to get traded in that situation and to have Orlando Cabrera come over and Doug Mankiewicz, those were key parts of that team in 2004. They had some clutch hits, great defensive plays. I mean, those guys, if it wasn't for them, I don't know if we would have won.
Yeah, that was the big thing, because the Red Sox that year, I'm actually pulling up some numbers here. The Red Sox that year, Nomar, as much as I love Nomar, he was very poor defensively that year. And granted, he was going through some stuff, with injuries and whatnot. So he just wasn't at his best. But Orlando Cabrera, Doug Mankiewicz, they really provided those gloves that the Red Sox really needed, because you thought, you got bats all over this lineup. And while Nomar was doing okay that year, it was clear there was something still going on. But I felt like, I remember when the trade happened, in my head, I'm like, wow, I can't believe they just traded Nomar Garciaparra. But then
I don't think any of the fans could believe it, because he's been such a fixture there for so many years.
Crazy.
Had so much success.
Yeah. I remember that was the top story anywhere, like ESPN, Fox, any channel you turn to the Disney Channel, and they said Nomar got traded. It was like just the weirdest thing. But I remembered, when they got Orlando Cabrera and Doug Mankiewicz, I'm like, man, that is all you got for Nomar Garciaparra. I'm like thinking like who are these guys?
Felt that way.
Yeah. But Cabrera, I was like, okay, well, Cabrera, he was decent with the Expos. Okay, fine. Doug Mankiewicz, okay, first base. Kevin Millar was, as much as I love him, he was just not getting it done at first base that year. They needed an upgrade. And in the end, I think that ended up being one of the biggest keys for the entire Red Sox postseason run that year, just shoring up the defense. And, looking back at Theo Epstein, he made a lot of great moves. How do you feel like just about all the moves that he made, putting that team together?
I tell you what, a lot of great moves, like you said. And, people at the trade deadline were thinking, okay, they're going to go out and get another big star, big stud. Yeah. But you go out and get a perfect fit. Guys that fit in the clubhouse, guys that, can add to that team chemistry. And that's exactly what happened they came in. I tell you what, it seemed like they've been there the whole year because they came in and mixed up well with the guys. It was a great clubhouse atmosphere. It was just one of those like a great team. I mean, that's exactly what that team was, a great team. You had your superstars, of course, with Manny and Big Papi and the pitching staff. But no, you also need those pieces. And those two guys were a piece of that puzzle that worked out for everything.
Yeah, and one piece, big piece of that team, probably one of my favorite players of all time, Curt Schilling. Like Curt Schilling on that team, it just felt like that was the missing piece of that team, especially with what he did in the postseason.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about Curt Schilling in just a little bit as we kind of dive more into the playoffs there. But Curt Schilling was huge that season. 21-6 record, solid ERA that year, good amount of strikeouts. I felt like Pedro, you felt like in 2003, when you look back on it, did you feel like there was just too much pressure on Pedro and he really needed, someone to go along with him in that rotation?
Well, I wouldn't say it was pressure on Pedro. I mean, he's dealt with that his whole career. I mean, he was a youngster in L.A., he had the pressure, and all of a sudden they trade him for, oh, my God, I can't remember who they traded him for, but it was a
lopsided one.
Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah. And you look back and you're like, you didn't know Pedro Martinez was going to be Pedro Martinez,
Yeah, it was one of the biggest steals of all time.
Oh, big time. So anyway, the thing about it, all of a sudden, I don't think there was a lot of expectation. You knew Pedro was going to be Pedro. He was going to be consistent. He was going to be dominating and all that. But Curt Schilling added that extra piece when the Red Sox got him that off season. For me, I was saying that's the key right there. We're going to be, a force to be reckoned with. Yeah. And hey, we were. It was fun. Curt added that starter in the rotation that we needed. Derek Lowe was there. I mean, hey, it was a lot of fun, man. And Derek Lowe was a great piece of that puzzle as well.
Oh yeah, and to me, ultimately, you could look at all the players, and sure, the players are the ones that get it done. They're going out there and they're winning the games for you. But to me, Terry Francona, I think, was the guy for. I just think I love Terry Francona. Like I don't know what it is. Every time I watch him in an interview, he just seems like, that uncle or like, dad or grandpa that you just want to just go hang out with, he just seems like just a very positive person all the time. I feel like he has a good sense of just, he's a player manager, but he's a hard-nosed manager as well that you want to play for. What were your thoughts on Terry Francona and just his time with the Red Sox?
Just like you said, he was one of those guys that said the right things all the time. And it worked out. Each guy, he would have his door open. He'll tell you, come into my office and we can just talk about anything. It didn't necessarily have to be about the game that particular day, the season. You could talk about, I just took my dog to the vet. I'm feeling a little down today. Whatever the case may be, he was one of those guys and a manager that knew the game extremely well. Okay, from top to bottom, he knew how to manage a game and how to manage different players. And when you talk about managing different players, it's different, attitudes. Everyone has a different personality. He knew how to, construct those guys in different parts of the lineup and everything else. But, I've only had a couple of managers like that, and Dusty Baker was another one. But Tito, let me tell you something. The success that he's had throughout his career.
Yeah.
And of course, this year with the Guardians, that young team, for him to have that young team play the way they're playing and performing like that on a big stage like this, I tell you what, that's the kind of manager you want on your club.
Oh, absolutely. I actually think Terry Francona, and no bias here, I would look, if I was an Orioles fan, I would look at it the same way. I think he's one of the more underrated managers in the game. You hear about the greats, like Joe Torre, Tony La Russa with the Cardinals for so long. You had Socha with the Angels, who was there for a long time. Francona, he has just had so much success. I don't ever hear him in conversations about like some of the best managers of all time. This was, he won the couple of World Series with the Red Sox, went to Cleveland, went to a World Series.
Yeah.
And now you're back in the playoffs. He's just worked with so many different teams. And to me, I think he's one of the more underrated managers of all time.
Oh, he is. I mean, when you talk about that, Robbie, first of all, you could see a manager like him inheriting a great team, like the Red Sox and doing what they did. But when he can go to Cleveland and put together a squad like that, each and every year they're competitive in the Central, you got to give the guy credit, man.
Oh, especially with, Cleveland is one of the most analytical organizations out there. And you see a lot of organizations now, they end up going different routes with managers just based off of how they communicate with the front office based off of the analytics. And Francona has just stood the test of time. Like, no matter what situation you put him in, he's going to do it. He's going to and be successful at it. So
he brings the best out of his players.
Yeah. I'm just glad he's doing well health-wise. That to me, was scary with me. I always just love the guy. I wish hopefully one day I can get to meet him. But I definitely think huge part of that team. And do you feel like in 2004, while the players were loosey-goosey, do you feel like he really brought that presence in 2004? Or do you like, how did he act? Like, was he kind of just stood back a little bit and when you were going down 3-0 to the Yankees, or would he call it like a pep rally kind of a meeting, or like how did he approach that?
You know what? I can't remember him calling any of the meetings. Although we had some player meetings, he wasn't the one that called it. He let the players, manage themselves. And like I said, a player's manager, you can just say he's going to treat a player the way he needs to be treated. I don't care if you have 15 years in the big leagues or you have 1 year in the big leagues. He's going to treat everyone with the respect that they deserve. And that's exactly what a great manager and a player's manager does. And he did that, man. He was just made all the right moves, had a personality that, second to none. He's a funny guy. Trust me.
Yeah,
that too. Very funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you need that as a manager. You don't want a manager always serious, too serious all the times, because you're going to have times in the season where, that's going to get old. So you got to kind of relate to each one of the guys. And he did that, and he does it very well.
Yeah. I remember listening to Papelbon. It was a spring training, and he was doing an impersonation of him. And it was just so funny. You could see that they just had, such a great relationship. Dustin Pedroia, told so many stories of him. Like, Franco didn't even know who he was or anything. I don't remember the quote that he said, but it didn't sound great when he said he first saw Pedroia. But I love that he just had that relationship. I'm sure him and Kevin Millar just could joke around for hours. I can't even imagine what that would be like. But
Kevin, right?
Oh yeah. But in that postseason, in that division series, you're going up against the Angels. It was just complete offense from the Red Sox. You had the walk-off from Ortiz. It was the Manny Ortiz show in that first round. Just Pedro pitched well. The one thing that I always remember from that first round was the Schilling injury. That I remember, I felt so good about that series. You won the first game, and then he pitched, and he came up hobbling on a ground ball. From the guys from the bench, do you remember any sort of kind of how everyone reacted to that, or what was the mood after that?
Everyone reacted, but you could sense, the panic. All of a sudden one of your star pitchers are going down. You're wondering okay, what are we going to do here? Who's going to step up?
Yeah.
But he didn't stay down very long, obviously, and he came back like a soldier he was, and pitched very well throughout.
Yeah. What are your, everyone obviously, people have talked about this for years, Curt Schilling, and, just what getting his ankle basically stapled back together. Just when you saw that, were you just thinking what were your first thoughts? When you saw that, were you thinking there's no way this is going to hold up, or how is this guy even going to do this? What were your thoughts on all that?
My whole thing is what the heck are they going to shoot him up with? To numb it up, because first of all, anytime you get any kind of procedure done, It's going to be sore. It's going to be, painful. He can easily, break open and bleeding like it was.
Yeah.
So, it was just a matter of, how much he could stand. Yeah. And I tell you what, with all of that adrenaline flowing, he didn't feel a thing. I mean, he was just hyped. That was awesome.
Yeah, I remember that first game, that first start against the Yankees. You could just see there was just something not right with him. It was just he was getting lit up in that game. I remember just watching him. I'm thinking like, oh, it's a cold night too. He just didn't have it, and I was worried after that. I was more worried at that point than when they went down 3-0. When they went down 3-0, I'm thinking like, all right, well, you know what? Hey, crazier things have happened. But that was like such a dagger to me. It's just like, wow, this guy just got lit up, and Pedro had gotten lit up too. You had these other guys stepping up for the Yankees in that series.
Yeah.
John Lieber, you couldn't hit the guy, in game 2.
And Pedro saying, who's your daddy in New York?
Oh my God. It was like Mussina was just couldn't hit him. He reminded me of when he was throwing a perfect game at Fenway until Carl Everett broke it up. Like, the Yankees just looked so good. I know you guys had a loosey-goosey attitude, and after that third game, but were you I don't know, do you ever like say from the dugout like, man, these guys are just looking good? Like, did you ever?
You know what, Robbie? That was a part of the strategy, man.
Yeah.
Get the Yankees overconfident.
Yeah.
And that's what that's what we did. But obviously, no. But seriously, that team never gave up.
Yeah.
And that's what it was all about. The Yankees, their confidence level got to a certain height, and they just knew that they were going to just kick our butts, sweep us, have a couple of days off before they go to the World Series and this and that. But no, it didn't happen that way. We did not give up. Yeah. We got together, had the team meetings, like I said, and just got everyone together. We're going down with the fight. And that's exactly what they did.
And, even though you saw the Red Sox, win games 5 and 6, games 4, 5, and 6, but the Yankees were, I mean, I'll give them, some credit. They were like extremely tough in those games. That wasn't like, you won by like, 5 or 6 runs. Like every single game was. Well,
you didn't expect them to fold the tent. You didn't expect them to just give up because, remember they had a 3-0 lead. Now all of a sudden, they probably say, okay, they won game 4, all right, or they won game 5. Now the panic is starting to set in. They'd be like, okay, hold up. We have to get this. We don't want this to go game 6 or game 7 for sure. Yeah. But when it did, you could see the tension in them. They got from loosey-goosey, having fun, smiling, high fives all in the dugout to everyone was like this. They were like, got very quiet. It was one of those moments where as an opposing team like us, the Red Sox, we looked at that. We saw that. We saw that fear.
Yeah, I think when you went back for game 6 in Yankee Stadium, I think that fourth inning when the Red Sox, when you guys put up a few runs, that was where it really felt like, okay, all right, we might have something here. Because Yankees, they were going nuts. I was a little worried about game 6. I'm thinking, all right, is this where the magic is over? Is this where it's going to end somewhere? It's going to be Yankee Stadium, of course, where it ended in 2003 with the walk-off with Boone. But that stadium was – I felt like I could feel the stadium shaking from my house. Like
I saw they were reaching, Robbie, when they had Bucky Dent throwing out the first pitch, Mike Torres throwing out the first pitch. You have one of the players' wives singing the national anthem. Oof. I'm like, okay, it's time for us to do it now. And I remember this. I looked back at one of the fans, and they were saying, "You guys are going down." And I told that fan, I said, "Dude, it's over. You guys are losing this series." And he was like, "What?" So after that game, I turned back at the end of the game. I said, "I told you, wait till tomorrow," and it was over. Yeah,
man, that guy paid some expensive. He paid some money for those expensive seats too, especially in that postseason at Yankee Stadium, man. But now game 6, that was huge. You had the Bellhorn home run that went off the fan. I got to ask you this because that was the A-Rod slap game as well. Some people like to call it that. as a player, I mean, I know we all know A-Rod has had his moments, but in my opinion, you know, even with all the controversy, you know, going through the PEDs and everything else, A-Rod to me was one of the most special players I ever watched. Like, amazing. So when you saw the slap, I guess, like, I don't know, is that like was that just a really out of the ordinary thing?
Well, I'd never seen it before. I'd never seen a player try to slap a ball out of the guy's glove or, you know, something like that. But obviously, you know, he didn't know it was a rule for that. So, you know, but I tell you what, the guy had a phenomenal career. He's done extremely well after baseball, you know, smart as hell. But, you know, that particular play, that wasn't a very smart play on his part. But you can't blame that particular play on him and the way the Yankees were playing and the way the Red Sox were playing. So, no, that was just one of those little incidents that happened. And, you know, people going to, you know, say what they want to say, the slap, you know, game or whatever. But, you know, that guy, I got to give it to him. He had a hell of a career, man. And you're absolutely right when you said that, you know, the things that he did in his career. But I met him, and the first time I met him he was still in high school. I was in spring training with the Chicago White Sox in Sarasota, Florida. And his agent at the time brought him to the stadium to meet Bo Jackson.
Wow.
And we just was sitting there talking, and I was looking at the kid, excuse me, you know, 6'3", tall, lean, very athletic looking. And they said, this is going to be the #1 draft pick in the country. And I was like, wow. I'm looking at him. I introduced myself to him. I said, good luck, and I'll see you in the big leagues. I didn't know it was going to be a year and a half, 2 years later, you know, well, a year and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got called up at, I think it was age 18 or 19.
Man. I mean, especially like, you know, because he was one of the really hyped up prospects coming in, you know, of all time.
Reason.
Like that's how Bryce Harper was back in the, you know, the 2009 or 2010, can't remember the year, but he, you know, that was the chosen one at the time. You know, Bryce Harper was the chosen one on Sports Illustrated. But yeah, A-Rod, you know, and that was another thing too. You had that whole thing going back to that offseason, just the whole drama. I still, there's a couple of videos on the YouTubes that I like to go. I'll still go back. And there's one where they actually interviewed a whole bunch of people like Theo Epstein, A-Rod himself, you know, all the people that were involved. It was so interesting how he almost went to the Red Sox. Now, I got to ask you this before we just move on, you know, to the World Series and everything. Do you think that team with Alex Rodriguez, you know, you would have had Manny go to Texas, Nomar would have went to Chicago. Do you think that team would have still had the same magic with A-Rod?
I mean, that's hard to say. I mean, you can't really – it's all about chemistry no matter where you go and who you get on that particular team. You know, there was a lot of hype. There was a lot of talk about him going to the Red Sox at that time.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I think he was a free agent, wasn't he?
He was on the Rangers. He had just signed a huge contract with the Rangers at the time. The deal was done. The trade itself was agreed to. It was just a matter of the Red Sox. They wanted to rework. They wanted him to basically take less money so that they could fit him into their payroll. You know, because they had Manny, they had Pedro, they had all these other guys they're paying. So, and A-Rod said he would have taken less money because he wanted to play for a contender. And but the Players Association said no. So that's when the deal got shot down, and that's when the Yankees came in and said, okay, well, we got all the money in the world, so yeah, we can take his contract. So
I mean, it's hard to say if he would have been a fit or it wouldn't have worked out, because, you know, a guy with that sort of potential and, you know, the expectation of the Red Sox would have just jumped sky high after that.
Yeah. I feel personally, I feel like it wouldn't have been the same team, because I feel like so much of the media attention would have been on him. But what was special about that team was you just had different personalities all over the place, you know, and A-Rod, it would have just been A-Rod every single day.
Well, no, I don't think the players would have let that happen, because every player on that squad, I don't care if you were the top dog the year before, you're just one of the guys.
Yeah.
And he would have fit in, of course.
Yeah.
But no,
yeah.
I don't think the media would have carried it like that as far as at Fenway Park. Of course, they would have the first month or so, him coming over, talking about the trade or whatever the case may have been for the players. But I think he would have fit into Boston. It was just a matter of time. And I'm thinking he wouldn't have been as hated by the Red Sox fans after that anyway.
That is one thing, though. I still kind of, obviously Red Sox fans have not been the biggest fan of A-Rod, but I kind of look back. I feel like, in a way, maybe that's not the most fair thing, because he would have taken less money he wanted to go to the Red Sox. He was completely okay with it. He would have taken less money to go. I feel like he did get a little bit of the short end of the stick with that. He went to the Yankees, and you can't blame him. It's like, what does he want to go?
Let me ask you this, Robbie.
Yeah.
Where did that hatred start? Was it after that Veritek fight, or what was it?
I would say it was probably just default at first because he's a Yankee.
Yeah.
But then I think it was the brawl with Veritek, where it's like, all right, yeah, we don't like this guy. We don't like this guy. So yeah, I think it was just, you didn't know, if you're a Red Sox fan, if you saw a guy with a Yankee shirt on the street, you'd be coming to fists at some point. That's just how intense that rivalry was. Man, it's not really like that anymore. My best friend is actually a huge Yankees fan. We actually lived together for almost 3 years, and we were watching games together. And I'd say now it's a more of a respect thing. I think that was the height of the rivalry, and that's what just made that series so amazing. I know Fox, they loved the money they were bringing in with the ratings, because that was one of the highest rated series of all time. I believe a few of those games were like the best of all time when it came to ratings. The
04 playoff.
Yeah. That game 7, I don't remember the number, but it ranked up there in terms of just how many views. Oh my goodness. Just the ratings for that game 7 with the Red Sox and Yankees.
For good reason.
Oh yeah. Incredible. And, let me ask you about that game 7. You're coming in, man, I think everyone was just, because how close those last few games were, I think everyone was just expecting like one of the greatest game 7s of all time. That's how it was getting hyped. But then you come in, and all of a sudden Johnny Damon's hitting home runs all over the place. It was just a complete blowout. When did you realize it was over in that game?
After game 6.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. So going in, you knew it was done.
It was over.
Yeah.
The momentum had switched.
Yeah.
The confidence of the Red Sox players, everyone, we knew we were going to win game 7. Yeah. I mean, I knew it to a point where I agreed to get mic'd up in our dugout. Okay. I was mic'd up just talking about, each one of the hitters and this and that.
Yeah.
But it was just the confidence level. Each one of the guys knew that this is it right here. We are going to the World Series. And the Yankees, I don't know. I couldn't tell you how they felt, but I could only imagine. You done won 3 in a row. Now you've lost 3 in a row. No chance.
Oh, yeah. And, one guy I do want to bring up here, David Ortiz is the star of the show, that whole series. Had a couple of walk-off hits, had the home run there in game 7 as well. He was just massive in that series. But Derek Lowe in that game 7, wow. He was phenomenal. He did not have a great season that year. He was very hittable. I watched one start at Yankee Stadium with him, and he was just getting lit up. And I think that was an August or September start. Can't remember. But wow, he was phenomenal in that game 7. What were, how was he like in the dugout? Was he just very stoic? Was he very just kind of?
Well, we never, pitcher, when the starting pitcher is pitching that particular day, you don't mess with him. Right. You don't talk to him. No. He was one of those guys. He'd sit there next to the cooler and just relax. Yeah. He didn't seem like he was intense. I mean, afraid or anything like that. He was locked in. And I tell you what, on the mound, man, that sinker was moving all sorts. It was all over the place. It was unbelievable. I loved it.
He figured something out at some point in that playoffs, whether it was a bullpen or just one of his starts, or maybe that start prior. He was okay in that game 4 start. But wow, he really figured something out, because then that led to the World Series. He pitched the clincher as well against the Cardinals. Let's move into that series before we, do get out of here eventually. With that St. Louis Cardinals team, did you feel like you had just played the World Series at that point?
No, there was still something to be done.
Yeah.
It was like we were on a mission, man. After winning those 4 straight there, I mean, we knew for a fact that game 1 was going to be ours. Okay. And then you win that. I mean, it was over, man. The confidence of that squad, and you've never seen that before, 8 in a row. It was unbelievable, man. And that was just something that you have to credit each one of the players on that team, that they believed in themselves. They believed in the process that we were going through. It was unbelievable. It was one of those moments where you were about to make history and you knew it.
Yeah. That Cardinals team was extremely good. That was a very good Cardinals team. I was actually very surprised, in a way, not taking anything away from the Red Sox that year, but I was in a way kind of surprised that it was a sweep, because they had come off an emotional series with the Astros. It almost felt like one team with the Cardinals just ran out of gas. And then with the Red Sox, it felt like you refilled your tanks. It was very interesting how because both series were incredible. The Astros Cardinals series was fantastic. Like, that was I think one of the better series I think I've watched, because you had walk-off homers in that game, close games in that series. You had Beltran going crazy. That was an extremely fun series between the Astros and the Cardinals. I mean, the Astros in the National League at that time.
Well, you've heard the old saying, it was meant to be. Okay.
Yeah.
And, the baseball gods were just looking down on the Red Sox and just, putting his arms around the Sox, because we had this so relaxed feeling. It was unbelievable. I'm going to say that word one more time.
Yeah.
It was just one of those times where you knew that this was going to be ours. And let me just say this. After it was all over, let me just jump ahead real quick. After it was all over, we were on the plane going back the next day, and everyone was like looking around like, did that really happen? Did we just win the World Series? I mean, it was like they couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
I was the same way. I couldn't sleep that night. It was just like, I mean, I'm a fan. You're a player, and you're thinking, I can't even imagine. You guys were probably up for like 3 days at that point. It was amazing. It was, and just seeing how all of Boston, just you see footage from all the bars and all the places around in Boston. Like, it was just nuts. People just flooding the streets of Boston. That parade was just insane. Like, there were people hanging out of windows and just wow. I couldn't even.
The one thing we all heard all the time was, I never thought it would happen in my lifetime. That's what so many people were saying.
Yeah.
And 86 years in the waiting, and the Red Sox finally did it. Then after that just opened up the doors for, the next few years.
Yeah. And you bring that up too. One of my favorite just images that I remember seeing was just, seeing, older men just like in the stands, people in their, in their 80s, 90s, and just like, got Red Sox hats on. Yeah. That was the cool part for me. It was just seeing all these guys, women too, just the fact that they got to experience it, and it was, they had gone through all of the hardships, they had gone through all of it.
I've never seen so many people crying. I mean, it was, doing the parade, the duck boats, you just passing by people and they're waving and crying because, they never thought it would happen.
Yeah. I mean, you had the Cubs back in 2016 going through something similar, but they had just a long time without a World Series. It felt like with the Red Sox, the Cubs definitely had their times where, wow, that was a real punch in the gut. But with the Red Sox, it was just the way they lost sometimes, incredible. Like you'd get the Cubs never just felt like they never really got that close, but the Red Sox did. The Red Sox got close numerous times, 86. You had the impossible dream with the Cardinals. You had many good Red Sox teams that got so far. Even, 1990 as well. That was a pretty decent team.
Yep.
Yeah, they just had the anniversary the other day with Roger Clemens and the umpire or whatever when they got into it. Just so many good Red Sox teams over the years. Yeah. But then it really led to a lot of success. 2007, that team to me was just wow. Like I'm not sure. I know obviously you were around the 04 team with 07. Were there any memories of 07 for you?
Not really. I didn't really follow because I had gotten away from baseball. Once I retired,
I could see.
I stepped away from baseball for like 2 or 3 years. I didn't even watch baseball just to kind of get it out of my system.
Totally. Yeah.
As a player,
I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
Well, 07,
player, you just wanted to get it out of your system.
Oh yeah, 07 was just for me. It was like after 04 happened, it just felt like okay, like. I'm in this now. Like I was already in it, but it's like, all right, cool. I just experienced a winning team. That 07 team, that was a really good team. The 04 team was incredible, but 07, wow, you had talent all over that team.
Right.
Josh Beckett was he was so bad when they traded for him in 06, but you knew that this was a guy, he was your next Pedro. Maybe it was only going to be for a short amount of time, but you knew when you got Beckett, he was going to be something. In 07, the guy was just nasty. Every single start he made. He had gotten beaten out by CC for the Cy Young, but didn't matter at that point. And they were down 3-1 against the Indians in that series. Wow. Like that comeback was also just amazing. Wasn't as good as the Yankee one, but Beckett really stepped up in that series. JD Drew with a huge grand slam in game 6. He had a really tough season. He was kind of like almost how Derek Lowe was in 04, where JD Drew really stepped up and he just made it count when it mattered. And that 07 run, you had Dice K on that team. Schilling was at the end of his career, but he was still turning in solid performances. That 07 team was a lot of fun, and it is kind of almost like a shame to me as a fan because of how special the 04 team was. I feel like the 07 team got a bit overshadowed in a way because that team was so good. You had Papelbon in the games. That guy was just on fire at that time. You had brought in Okajima from Japan along with Dice.
I heard he was nasty.
Oh my goodness. Like the guy, he wouldn't even look at the plate when he threw the ball. He would his head would be the other way.
Right.
Man, that was a fun team. 2013, obviously you had the Boston Marathon tragedy. That was just awful in every sense of the word. Had you been following along with the Red Sox in 2013?
Yeah, I had picked it up in the playoffs and everything else. But that season, for the season to start off the way it did with the marathon incident and for Big Papi with that speech, I mean, that was an iconic speech. That's going to be remembered, for years to come. And that's the special moment right there that just got that season going. And I tell you what, it was lights out.
Oh yeah. That was, I remember watching that game that day where the tragedy happened. And I remember I'm like thinking, I go, cool, walk-off win for the Red Sox. Napoli drove in the game-winning run. And I'm thinking, all right, cool. Good day, Patriots Day, awesome day. And then that happened. And it was like, oh my God. And then, but that team, 04 was special.
Yep.
I loved the 2013 Red Sox. That was such a fun team for me. I just started, experimenting with facial hair at the time. I was clean shaven most of the time. And, and they had the beards going that year. That team had the same energy, at least when you looked at it from a TV point of view, as the 04 Red Sox. They just had something special. They just connected with each other. You just saw a
chemistry.
Yeah, they had the chemistry. It was just such a fun team. Guys like, Mike Napoli, Johnny Gomes was huge. They were huge for that team. You had great pitching. Just Ortiz was, it's crazy because Ortiz was a little older at that time, a few years away from retirement at that point, but it felt like he had just almost hit his prime in that World Series. Like it had felt like that World Series run that he had, he was incredible. Like that was,
dude, I always say this, Robbie, just talking about David real quick.
Yeah.
How do you retire with those numbers he had that last year?
Oh my goodness.
Oh, I was like, what? I mean, I think he hit 34, 35 homers. What was it?
Yeah, I'm looking at the stats right now. In 2016, hit 315 with a 401 on base, a 620 slugging, 38 homers, 27 RBIs. Based off of just his, he was only an offensive player. He was a 4.5 win player. But that's on Fangraphs. But Fangraphs, they can be a little cheeky sometimes with the numbers.
Yeah,
but he was way more than 4.5 wins. He was definitely more like a 6-7 win player. He was incredible. I mean, that last season, man, and people were saying like, dude, like, you really want to retire? Like, come on, man. Like, but he was like, man, my feet are killing me. Like, he was in pain. It just seemed like it didn't look like it. David Ortiz was just special. I remember him getting into the Hall of Fame. I was like, this is one of the greatest hitters that I just ever watched, year to year. And I remember Ortiz too. He had gone through a couple of years, 2009, 2010. I believe 2008 wasn't his best year either. He went through a 3-year run where people were saying like, all right, looks like David Ortiz, he's running into the end of his career here. But that was what was also just amazing about the next few years, was because he picked it up high, and then he just hit a low, and then he just went even better. It was incredible. Also, I just want to point this out in the chat. I forgot to mention him earlier. Sal in the chat saying Mark Bellhorn, unsung hero in 2004. Mark Bellhorn was huge in those playoffs. Big home run in the ALCS. That was the one that hit the fan. They got reviewed. You didn't have instant replay at that point. So that was definitely a different scenario at that time.
We were hoping that it wasn't like the Yankees and Oriole game where the fan actually, the call was turned for the Yankees.
Yeah. Hit him square in the chest. Like it was just like a bullseye. Yeah. And then he had the big home run against the Cardinals in game 1. Mark Bellhorn, I'll always love Mark Bellhorn. That to me, he was a guy that, maybe he didn't put up the best numbers regular season wise, but he always played a pretty solid second base. He just came up big when you needed him to.
Yeah.
He just had a knack for that. What were your thoughts on Mark Bellhorn? What was he like? Was he more like a quiet guy, or how was
Mark was very quiet, but I liked it. I liked him a lot. I mean, he was one of those guys, you just put him in a lineup, he was going to go do his best each and every night. Like you said, he didn't have the best regular season, but it was something about the 04 playoffs, something clicked for him, and he just turned it on at the right time. And it was one of those things that, hey, we loved it and put it like that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm actually looking at his numbers from 2004. He actually that was his best season in 2004. Really good season. He had a 373 on base. That, like, if you have a 373 on base in today's game, like, that's a really good number.
How many walks did he have that year? Did he have a lot of walks?
He walked 14% of the time. That's pretty solid. Actually, in the postseason, in 04 in the postseason, he almost walked a quarter of the time.
Yeah.
And he had a 397 on base in that postseason.
That's what
he was an on base machine. Had 3 homers, 8 RBIs. Really underrated that year. Really underrated. Like Bellhorn. I mean, that was pretty much it for Bellhorn. He ended up, going elsewhere in his career. Was with the Yankees for a stint there, but Bellhorn, I think definitely one of the more underappreciated guys. Is there another player that kind of maybe comes to mind? I do have one. I have one more, but do you have any more that maybe come to mind?
Well, we always talk about, the starters and everything. But you talk about Dave Roberts. Dave did.
Oh my! How did we
throughout the
forget to talk about Dave Roberts? Oh my goodness!
Yeah, I mean,
wow.
That's one guy. When I see him, every time I see him, he's got the biggest smile on his face. He greets me. It's just, great memories there. He was one of my teammates in Cleveland as well as in Boston. So, we go way back.
Yeah, Dave, man, I'm glad he's having success.
Oh yeah,
and him getting that steal, that was just, that's just going to go down.
Oh yeah.
I got to ask you though, like I know you're feeling confident going into Game 4. You guys are, you're feeling good about yourselves, but when Mariano was picking him off, trying to pick him off, like you guys had to be like feeling a little like, all right, this is a little dicey right now. There was one pickoff attempt. I thought he was out.
Yeah, it was close.
There was one. Oh my goodness. And that steal, that was a bang, bang steal. Like
but the thing about it, everyone knew he was going. I mean, the Yankees knew he was going. It was just a matter, how good of a jump are you going to actually get?
Right.
He kept going out a little bit further on Mariano, and all of a sudden he took off. And I tell you what, that throw was pretty good. And we were just on the tip of our toes. And when that upset safe, oh God, the relief.
If he was out,
it was a wrap.
It's done at that point. I mean, I always think to myself, if you ever want to see someone as focused as you could possibly be at any given moment, point in time, whatever, Dave, just go to the Dave Roberts steal. That guy was as locked in as you could get. Like that was,
and he got a great jump. If you look at as soon as Mariano's heel raised up off the ground, he broke. I mean, a lot of times as a base stealer, sometimes you don't get that great jump. Sometimes you get the pitcher's knee is already up and you go. That's not a good jump. Dave's jump was perfect.
It was so perfect. Every part of that. And then the guy that knocked him in, Bill Miller.
Yeah.
Bill Miller was actually one of my favorite players in 03 and 04. I loved Bill Miller. He was so good in 03. He was the batting champ. But again, like it kind of just felt like, unfortunately, like he just I felt overshadowed a little bit. Like we mentioned earlier, the walk-off, the brawl kind of overshadowed that walk-off homer. And then it just feels like people remember the Dave Roberts steal more than the actual game-tying hit. I actually asked a friend, he was a Red Sox fan. I said to him, like, you remember who got the game-tying hit? He was like, oh, wow, I'm going completely blank. He actually said, was it Bellhorn? I'm like, no, it was Bill Miller. Yeah. I was like, oh, my God, I can't believe I forgot it was Bill Miller. Like, I loved Bill Miller. He was always very, very clutch. And in that postseason, actually, over 14 games, hit 321, a 406 on base. He was extremely good that postseason.
Well, a lot of people forget he won a batting title. I mean, Billy could hit. He was my teammate in San Francisco as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Billy could just rake, man. That was one of those. I mean, he was a great hitter, great guy to have on your team, always laughing, having a good time. And it was wonderful to have him, as a teammate.
Yeah, he just seemed like a true pro. Like he just showed up every day, just loved the game of baseball, just was ready to play, ready to hit. That's what I liked about him. Just one of the true dirt dogs on that team, just like a Trot Nixon. One of those guys that just didn't mind getting dirty, and just going out there and just playing. I got to say one more guy, though. That Red Sox bullpen, if you go back to that championship series, after that third game, that Red Sox bullpen, I actually wrote it down. 18 innings. That was the bullpen was nuts. 18 innings, only 4 earned runs. 2 of those runs came from Pedro in the game 7 when he came into that game. So if you don't count Pedro there, which was just a blowout win anyway, you only give up 2 runs in 17 innings of work. And Curtis Laskanik was the guy. Wow. He was so bad. He was not very good. He had an ERA over 5 that year. But whoa, he was just the guy that had just gotten lit up. Like Gary Sheffield just tater-totted him. Just
he was pitching with a tear. He was pitching with a tear in his arm.
Yeah,
he bit the bullet. He went out there, didn't complain about nothing. After the season was over, had surgery. But
he was
hurting every time he went out, but he bit the bullet and he did a great job.
You could tell he was going more to, his off-speed stuff.
Yep.
And because you could see that, he was throwing more fastballs, in the regular season as well as, a few games in that postseason. But it seemed like he was going more to the breaking stuff, and the Yankees just couldn't hit him. He had an inning and a third there. They ended up leading to the walk-off win. Right. I think that was game 5. Game 5? I think it was game 5. But he was whoa, he really stepped up. Wakefield had really stepped up. That's another one here where, he was the one that took it right on the head with the walk-off homer to Boone, and he got those 3 innings out of the bullpen. The bullpen was so good, and especially how bad that bullpen was in the first few games. It was great to see. Did you guys feel a little iffy about the bullpen, or did you just feel like, all right, we're all in this, let's go?
No, we're all in it together, man. I mean, it was just a total team effort, and that's what I was saying at the beginning of this whole topic, that that 04 team was truly one of the best teams I've ever been on.
Yeah, incredible.
I'm not saying that just because we won the World Series. I'm saying it from day one, from spring training, you could tell it was different. And I've been in Boston. I played in Boston prior to that success, but it was just something. Everyone just got along so great. Yeah. Everyone's around the same age. I was that old veteran on the squad, of course, but most of those guys, it was just something about that team that just it seemed magical even from spring training.
Yeah, you just had personalities. Obviously Manny being Manny. He was, the World Series MVP. The guy was just a machine. Incredible to me. I was just talking about Jose Ramirez the other night, and I was saying Jose Ramirez is going to be like Manny Ramirez, where he's going to be so good every season, but I feel like it's never going to be enough to win an MVP. With Manny. I hope Jose Ramirez wins an MVP. That guy's really good.
He's been so consistent, man. Man, so switch hitter, third baseman. Just a premium position, and just doing on a daily basis. And he's that presence on that team where these youngsters are looking at him for his leadership. Yeah. And I tell you what, and he's showing that he's a good example.
Yeah. I hope he wins one. It just seems like every year it's either Aaron Judge just goes nuts. Ohtani is just incredible.
Oh, geez.
Trout is just Trout. And it's like you can't catch a break with this guy. That's how Manny was. It was like every year he was so good. And but there was just someone that just had this incredible season. It was like, God, Manny could hit 40 homers, 100 RBIs, hit over 300, and he just can't win it.
Yeah, he did that in his sleep. 330, 100.
Oh my goodness. He was huge. But before we do get out of here, we do got to mention the 2018 team. That obviously, when you talk about greatest teams that you've ever seen, that Red Sox team was just there. It was that one was there was something special there too,
from start to finish.
Oh my! It was I know no one wants to pick the Dodgers this year, because they always seem to just find a way to lose in the postseason every single year, but I almost get the same vibes with this Dodgers team, with how that Red Sox team was. They're just so good. And it's like you always want to pick that top dog to just fall. Yeah. But there was no picking against the Red Sox that year. They blew through the playoffs.
Yeah.
They beat that clinching game with the Yankees in that first round almost gave me a heart attack. I think I almost lost my life with Kimbrel on the mound. And then, the Astros series, every game in that Astros series just felt incredibly tense. So it's surprising to me that they won that.
How about
series
that diving catch by Benintendi?
Oh my God. I remember watching that. I just went nuts. I couldn't believe that. That 18 inning game against the Dodgers, I fell asleep a couple of times. I couldn't help it. And I woke up and I'm like, oh my God, the game's still on. And so
you thought it was a replay, huh?
I thought maybe I thought maybe they'd just put it back. I'm like, no, wow, this is still live. And it was such a bummer when Muncy hit the walk-off. But wow, that team was so good. Mookie Betts that year, one of the best seasons of all time.
Yep.
just in general, he was incredible that year. Home runs, stolen bases, average. You saw the emergence of Devers in that season. Sale was just great. He was hurt, but he was just Chris Sale and closing it out in that World Series. Anything that comes to mind with you, looking back, any memories of the 2018 team?
Yeah, just like you said, just total team effort. Those guys, they played, you had superstars. And the thing about it, the only thing, you didn't have Big Papi there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had JD, and, he did a great job. But just a total team effort. 108 wins. Man, that's doing it.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you this. I just remembered it. It was so there is some stories out there, reports that we'll have to wait and see how it ends up going. We've talked about this a couple of times where Xander Bogaerts, is going to most likely become a free agent, opt out of his deal. But the Red Sox, it seems to be that he is the number one priority. But Pedro Martinez was actually just talking about it. And he was saying how you just mentioned that David Ortiz wasn't there, but you had someone like Ortiz that Bogaerts and Devers, he was that guy that they could turn to. Mm-hmm. And Pedro actually made a really good point, saying like Xander, he's almost like how Ortiz was. Like Xander is like that leader of the team, like that veteran. That's just he's the best player on that team, and yep. Do you agree with, Pedro in that sense, where if he leaves, it could end up being a complete culture shift?
Well, he's definitely one of those players that I think is a fit all the way around. He's a fixture in Boston, on and off the field, nothing but positive things about Xander Bogaerts. It would definitely be a loss for the Red Sox if he left. Now,
yeah.
Do he want to leave? He doesn't want to leave. He wants to be a Red Sox. But the way the contract is set up, he can opt out of his deal and get basically what all of these shortstops that are coming into free agency at the same time, basically the same kind of money.
Yeah.
And you can't blame him for that. That's just the way the market is. And of course he signed that deal, but he also left that open in that contract as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So and that's going to be huge. It's going to be massive. I'm just going off of what Pedro said here. Bogaerts and Devers, they learned from Ortiz, and Pedroia, who with them, Pedro and guys like Veritek were big for those guys. And that's what was special with that 2018 team, was because, like you said, there was no Ortiz anymore. You didn't have that one bat that you knew you could count on, and you had a younger team at that time. And that 2018 team was just, you brought in someone, guys like JD Martinez, obviously.
Yeah, and JD had a great year that year.
Huge. Yeah. MVP caliber.
JD and Mookie led that team. I mean, they both stepped it up.
So good. And that 2018 team was just, 2004, yes, amazing team all the way around. Mm-hmm. But obviously you guys had your bumps. There were some bumpy times. It felt like that 2018 team just the whole way. Like it just never felt like there was any. You lost 2 games in a row, and you're like, oh wow, I haven't seen this happen. Wow, we just dropped 2 in a row. Wow, okay, all right, that's a little, all right, that's a bump. But that's how bad it really ever got for that Red Sox team. Incredible, and there's just been so many good postseason memories over the year. Honestly, as a Red Sox fan, we have been spoiled. To me, it's like, sure, we can make our criticisms and we can, point at some things that we're, unhappy with. Oh, why did we make this move or blah, blah, blah. But it's like, man, we have won 4 World Series since 2004. There's not a lot of teams that can say that.
Yeah.
Incredible memories. Is there anything besides, what we've talked about, like any other moments in your career that may have stood out, or even with different teams, or any other postseason memories that come to your mind at all?
No, you know what? Let's stick with this year, because I wanted to mention this. This was pretty ballsy, and I love this guy. Now, Dave Roberts, I told you, I played with him in Cleveland, played with him in Boston. He's a great manager for the Dodgers. But for him to predict that they were going to win the World Series this year put a lot of pressure on him and that organization as well. As the team. Now, that said, with this team that they have, they should. I mean, if you look at from the first three hitters, you're looking at Trey Turner, Mookie Betts, Freeman. I mean, just unbelievable numbers.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So I just think he was kind of talked into that, you know. You think he'll win the World Series? Then that's when he said that.
Yeah.
Because as a manager, that's nothing. That's something you don't want to say. You
right.
know, you believe in your squad. Don't get that twisted. You definitely believe in your team.
Yeah.
But there's certain things you just don't say.
Yeah.
But for him to say that, and I just wanted to bring that up because that stood out to me from the beginning of the season in spring training.
Sure.
He had that interview right before spring training started.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, wow, that's ballsy right there.
I think looking back on it in hindsight, I don't think I realized how big the Freeman signing was going to be. You know, that has just been like, you're signing a guy that just won a World Series. You know, now this guy knows how to win now. And he had an incredible season. I think he has been so huge for the Dodgers this year.
Like, yes.
Looking back on it, I'm like, all right, cool. You know, he'll be a solid player for them. But wow, he is just, for me at least, exceeded all expectations. Like, I thought he was going to be really good. I didn't think he was going to be this good. Wow. So, but I think that is all we have. I mean, we just went through a lot.
That was good. I love that.
Yeah, that was, I mean, we could talk. I mean, that's the funny thing. We spent on 04 a lot, but that's how much there was, you know, to talk about. It's, geez, they're probably still writing books about that 04 World Series and the whole season in general. But there's been just so many great moments. 07 was amazing for me because that to me was this, because I had seen what a winning team was like at that time. But then to just see 07 in itself, it was a different team, still had same elements of that 04 team, but new ingredients in with it. And then you had, you know, the emotion of 2013 and, you know, Shane Victorino with the grand slam. That to me was my favorite moment of the entire postseason. I mean, besides winning the World Series, the Victorino grand slam against the Tigers, I went ballistic. Like I was in college at the time. I was in my little apartment, had someone next door to me. I was screaming so loud that the person I didn't really know the person very well. They were banging on the wall and they're like, dude, you got to like stop. And I'm like, I can't. This is nuts.
So ever since you were like from the 9th grade to college, even after college, the Sox have been winning World Series.
Yeah, I became a Red Sox fan at the right time.
Right.
Literally the perfect time. You know, 02 was when I started paying attention. They didn't do much that year. They had some good seasons from some players that year. But 03 was when I really got into it. So,
Aaron bleeping Boone.
Yeah, but right away I got exposed to just pain. So, it's not like I just jumped in and they won a World Series. I experienced my first painful moment right off the bat. The 03 division round against Oakland, that was just incredible for me. The Trot Nixon walk-off when you're down 2-0. That's when Trot Nixon became my favorite player. Trot Nixon was all time my favorite player. I don't know what it was. Just love watching the guy play. Yeah, man. I've been spoiled as a Red Sox fan, and Red Sox fans have just been spoiled in general. Sure, they've had the ups and downs. You go from winning to just being in last place the next year. But Ellis, man, this is a great talk. I mean, it's always fun to talk. You could do this for 3 hours if you wanted to.
Yeah, easy.
But on that note, we will get out of here. Everyone, I also did just want to go over today's sponsors. I actually forgot to do that really quick before we do get out of here. Remember, sponsoring today's episode we have BetOnline. If you are into the sports betting game, absolutely check out BetOnline. Football is back, and BetOnline remains your number one source for all of your football betting needs this postseason. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, player news, and game trends. And as your continued source for all sports wagering info, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events, like the Major League Baseball playoffs, MMA, tennis, boxing, and even golf. Head to betonline.com to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Use the code BLEAV, BLEAV. Again, you get a 100% welcome bonus. So if you deposit $20, they'll give you $20. BetOnline, where the game starts. We're also partners here with Prize Picks. Use my code GINGER and you'll get a 100% deposit match as well. And check out SeatGeek. Use my code Hyde and you'll get $20 off. Ellis, I want to thank you for coming out for tonight's episode. Everyone in the chat, thank you for coming out, listening to us talk some Red Sox postseason memories. And we will see you again next week. Everyone, have yourself a great night. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.